Hello, I'm Emma of Granola Gear, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you again today about what I have been knitting on lately. I've finally made some progress on a few pieces that were giving me trouble, so I'm feeling really good about this podcast. I was in a bit of a rut with podcasting just because I was having some issues with a bunch of projects that were solvable, but were just going to take a lot of work. And so I wasn't really enthused about the idea of talking about them. It was sort of one of those things where sometimes if you have an issue, you need to talk through it to figure out how to fix it. But I knew how to fix it. I just didn't want to. So I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to not think about it for a little bit and move on with my life. And I sort of had too many projects going on and just needed to get a couple out. So I'm glad that I've gotten over that hump, and now hopefully we can start the new year afresh. There are a few things that are still on the needles, but you know what I mean. I get some things off my mind, so that's good. I'm wearing today my Oslo sweater by Petite Knit. This is like a piece I don't wear a ton. It was kind of an early sweater for me. The mohair in it's actually kind of flat, but it's knit with an unraveled cashmere yarn from a thrifted sweater and a strand of drops kid silk mohair, just in black. It's a really light, fluffy piece, and I don't know. I guess I should wear it more, but it's a little big, which is fine. It's just not always my first pick. But at least it's soft, I guess. I don't always feel like mohair is soft, but I guess it is. I don't know. It's all in your head. It's all subjective. Who knows? But let's get into finished objects. And the first one I'm really glad to be done with, and I'm also really glad that I had enough yarn because I was unsure. I've recently had played some serious games of yarn chicken and somehow magically came out on top, shockingly. Um, so this is, one second, it's got something on it. The Braidy Loop sweater by Other Loops. I knit this in Jody Long Chow, which is a superwash yarn in the color pale. It's knit on 4mm needles. It's got this really cool saddle shoulder. Hopefully in my try on video I can show you. I talked last time, I knit the size small. What else? It's a DK weight pattern. So I talked, I think last time about the sleeves and kind of my sleeve saga and how I just was dealing with issues. And I'm glad that I ended up doing what I did, which was decreasing more than in the pattern. So I ended up with less sleeves, less stitches at the end, and my sleeve wasn't as big along the whole thing. I guess in the sleeve part, this would have had more, but I decreased faster. Um, because literally when I got to the end here, I had this much yarn left. Like I was so close, and I was really worried that it still wasn't going to be long enough, and I was going to have to order more yarn, but I just made it. It's got a really small rib at the bottom there, which I think looks good. And I think proportionately, because I did do less rib in the cuff because of how I did the sleeves, I think that makes sense. The really small rib and a not super wide rib here, because the rib in the original piece was a lot bigger. I like how this turned out more or less. I kind of have issues, not with the fit. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll put in a video of me trying it on, obviously. And I showed some other knitters that I was seeing it, like I was wearing it, and they thought it looked good, and I think it looks fine. But I think maybe my yarn isn't quite drapey enough. I'm hoping that with some wear, it'll maybe, break in a little bit more. And the other thing is, so this is a saddle shoulder, but it's also knit as a raglan, but it's kind of a drop shoulder. Like you see there, I originally thought this was a drop shoulder because you're just getting that flat line there. You're not really doing any increases on the body section, which kind of makes a really aggressive shoulder for some reason. Like I feel like the shoulder sticks out a lot, but it's a raglan still, so I don't know, it's like those two things are kind of butting heads a little bit, and I feel like the join between body and shoulder just looks a little odd, at least on me. I think I was hoping this would be a very crew necky sweatshirt type sweater, and it is, and this yarn is good for that. It's very bouncy. Um, I don't know. I guess it's just not exactly what I was expecting, which is partially because of my yarn, but I don't know. Sometimes I get this vision of looking at a project and I see it how I want it to be, and then I knit it and it's not quite how I wanted it to be, but it is the way that the picture is. Or maybe the pictures aren't very representative. I don't know. But I do like the pattern. I think it was cool. The construction's very interesting. I didn't mind knitting it. The rib is so wide, it's not as annoying as like knitting a whole sweater 2x2. It was more akin to a stockinette, which wasn't bad. The body's not super duper long, but it was still long enough so you weren't like slogging on it forever. The neckline's pretty good, but yeah, it maybe could have used short row shaping. I don't know. Maybe it's fine. I kind of, I don't know. I feel like I've been trying to do different things, knit different things this season, and then I finish them and I have like a lot of mixed feelings about them. I'll wear it and it'll be fine. I don't know. Maybe I'm just picky. Maybe it's just I finish and things aren't exactly what I hoped, and then after a couple weeks it'll be fine. So that's my thought. I do like the sweater. I do like the pattern. It's other loops I hope I mentioned. But yeah, I love this color still, this pale pink that's like a really cool tone. I think it looks really good. And it's a nice bouncy yarn. I'm calling that my only finished object for this week because I have one other that's mostly finished, but it's not quite technically done. So I will move on to my works in progress. And the first one is that piece that's almost finished, but not quite done. And that's my November neck by Petite Knit. I haven't sewn in the buttons. That's why I'm calling it a whip. And I blocked it, but I blocked it with it flipped out like this. And if you can see, that's the wrong side for the brioche increases. So I need to like steam it with the flap facing the other direction because that side, the brioche increases are correct. I have buttons for this. I have to add them. It's knit in Noro Ito. It's an Aran weight pattern by Petite Knit. This Ito was in color number 1, but if you go on Ravelry, it's not the color number 1 that they have on there. I couldn't actually really find this color, but it's really pretty. Another, like, I had this much yarn left at the end. I really was very unsure about if I was going to be able to finish this. Knit on 5mm needles, I believe. This is my first ever brioche project. It was a good starter for me because it wasn't super complicated. It was one color, not 2 colors. It was just simple increases, not a whole lot of crazy shaping. Yeah, I love the colors. I love the pink and the green and the yellow all together. It's very springtime for me, even though it's not like a springtime type wear piece, but I love this color combo. What was the other thing I was going to say about this? On the tip of my tongue. Oh, so according to the yardage that Petite Knit lists for this pattern, I wasn't going to have enough. I thought I was going to have to do like the last little bit in a different color. So I'm really glad that I didn't. But I think possibly with the increases, I wasn't entirely sure if you were supposed to like knit the increase row and then do 7 rows after that, or if the increase row counted as that. So I did it as the increase row counted as the total number of rows until the next increase row, which is probably wrong. So I may have shorted myself a little bit between each increase row, but that meant the whole piece got to be knit in this yarn. So I'm totally okay with that. I think it'll fit fine. I don't think it'll make a big difference. And if it does, I'll block it out aggressively. But yeah, because it's kind of hard with the increases in brioche are so like seamless. I didn't really know exactly what direction to go with that, but I like it. I'm happy with it. I will show it next time, hopefully as a fully finished object, and do a little try on so you can see it. Now into my true whips. I will start with, what did I write first in my list? The Esther jacket. So this guy is going to look exactly the same as it looked last time, but I've actually reknit the entire thing since then. There you go. So I'm working on the right front shoulder. This is knit in the Isager Highland wool, 2 strands of that and 1 strand of the Jensen. This was a gift from, oh, sorry, one of the balls. This was a gift from my mother-in-law when she was in Oslo. I've really been enjoying it. It's just in the plain white color. I looked at other colors, but they didn't really have like between the Jensen and the Highland wool, there weren't a lot of color options that had similar colors in both of them or similar enough that the texture would be what was standing out. So I decided to just go with the original white because I do wear my other white cardigan a lot. So I started knitting this, and I knit all the way through the right shoulder, and then I was like, this is looking really small. So I blocked it. It didn't grow as much as I thought it was going to. And then I measured it and measured it against another sweater, and I was like, yeah, my gauge is off. My gauge is a little small, which is interesting because I like always hit gauge with petite knit patterns. I will knit a swatch sometimes. If my yarn is iffy, I'm not really sure if it's going to work, I'll knit a swatch. If it's a different new designer that I haven't knit before, I'll knit a swatch. If I'm not sure what the fabric is going to be, I'll knit a swatch. Sometimes I just start the pattern and then I measure my gauge after I've started it, and then I go, okay, that's fine, and keep going. This one, I was like, is petite knit. I usually hit gauge with petite knit pretty well, and I'm using the exact same yarn that she used in the sample. So what are the chances that I'm not going to hit gauge? Like nothing, basically. So I knitted up, and my gauge was too small, and it was just making it look really small, and I didn't feel good about continuing. So it was originally I was knitting it on 5mm needles, but I switched to 5.5mm needles, and that was enough of a difference for this. So I re-knit it back up, and then it's fine. I also got stuck for a little while because I have enough yarn for a medium. I almost always knit the small for petite knit. That's the size that's recommended for me. All of my size small petite knit patterns fit really well, but I was considering, because it's a cardigan, it's a jackety cardigan, knitting a larger size and having it be a bit more oversized. I was really going back and forth. I did a poll on Instagram, and everyone, like a lot of people voted, but there were more people that voted for oversized. I just went back and forth for a while. I couldn't commit to which size I wanted to go with, because medium isn't a huge jump, but I didn't want to like make it and then have it be big enough that it was annoying to wear. And I decided at the end of the day, like I wanted to be able to fit it under a jacket easily. And so because of that, I'm gonna knit the small. Yeah, because the medium might just be bulkier, and decided that would be the best choice for me. I have my champagne cardigan is in white, and I wear that quite a lot. It goes with everything. So the thought was to have another white sweater to sort of break that up. And I've been trying to focus on cardigans this year. So that's been great. I'm finally making progress again, which is awesome. I've made my decisions, and I keep hiccuping, and I can move on with my life, which is wonderful. Oh, she's so pretty. But I'm excited to get out of this unraveled yarn that's all kinky because I blocked it, and get back into my regular non-bumpy yarn again. So yeah, that's the Esther jacket. I'm getting stuck on my cords. Next one is, I'm so excited for how much further I am on this. And this is the 5219A sweater by Drops Design. I'm knitting this for my brother. It's a DK weight pattern. Oh, Esther jacket, worsted weight. This one is a DK weight pattern. I'm knitting it in Drops Charisma in the blue and the white on 3.5mm needles, and it's this crazy colorwork sweater. So no progress on the body. That was finished last time when I showed you. I still have to steek the front and do the collar, but that and assembly are basically all I have left at this point, because I finished both sleeves. Yay! I think in the last podcast I showed that I had basically finished one sleeve, but my increases were not right because this is knit from the cuff up, and it was enough of a difference. Like I was under by like 20 plus stitches when I got to the end, and it was just not going to work on the armhole. So I just had to leave it for a while because I like couldn't stand to look at it, obviously. And I eventually went back, counted exactly how many rows I had, because even though this section and this section were standardized for every size, this section was variable just based on how long you made it. This was like knit to a certain number of inches, so I counted how many rows I had in this, so I would know how many, and then I knew what I was supposed to start with for stitches and what I was supposed to end with, and then I was able to make my increase rate correct for my sleeves, and increase to the correct point. Yeah, so I think my increases stopped like maybe right in this last stripe here, so it worked out really well. The cuffs look kind of small, but I had my husband try them on his hands, so they should be fine for my brother. I did ribbing at the cuffs instead of the folded edge, like the pattern says, because I think this would be more sensible for him. really excited to get this finished. I'll sew these in eventually. I think when I sew them in, because the edges are steeped on the body part and because it's superwash, I'm probably going to like sew a ribbon over the cut edges around the sleeve hole, because that'll get a lot of friction and I don't want it to cause any problems in the future. I want it to be nice and neat and held together. But basically the bulk of this whole sweater is done, which is a huge win. And now that I have this done, I'm going to take probably a teeny tiny break from this, just because there's minimal finishing work left at the end of the day. And I don't feel like it's something that's going to be abandoned. It's basically done. So I'm really happy about this. This is a crazy pattern, would not recommend, but it's been an adventure. I've learned a lot. I think my brother is going to love it. I need to order the yarn for my other brother's sweater, which is not going to be this sweater. It's going to be a little more simple. Not because I love him less, but because he's less adventurous when it comes to clothing and fashion. I want to make them both something they'll wear and love for a long time. I know this brother is more likely to wear this than my other brother. So that's that. And my last work in progress this week is something I'm picking back up. Not very exciting, not a ton of progress, but working on my baby blanket squares again. I'm going to do a 4-square blanket, alternating pink and white. I have one white square already done, and then the 4th square is going to be a Stella quilt cushion, like front panel, because I think that'll be really pretty. And yeah, it's faster and easier than doing all Stella quilt cushion panels, and I think it'll look nice. But these squares are really big. My 5mm were like being shared on a couple different projects for a while, which is why this was off the needles. But now she's back, and this is just with like a Michaels Loops and Threads acrylic worsted yarn. So yeah, those are all my works in progress for this week. I don't have any acquisitions. I do need to place an order from Wool Warehouse, probably for a sweater for my husband, a sweater for my brother, and then I was thinking about buying some kid silk mohair to go with some other yarn that I have for an undetermined project, but it's on sale right now. But they don't have the black, and the black is what I want. So I'm kind of debating and thinking, considering. I've made it through a lot of the yarn that I bought early on in the season. I still have a lot of yarn in stash right now, but if I'm buying for something specific, it's not like a huge deal for me. So that's that. I'm hoping that next week I will have my Everything I Knit in a Year video out. Not on Wednesday, because Wednesday's Christmas. I'm hoping to do it on Thursday as like a post-Christmas present to you all. It's going to take me a while. It's going to be long. I'm hoping to put together some stats on everything I knit so we could do like a little breakdown of where I focused and what I used and all of that. It's going to be really fun. Yeah, so hopefully that'll be interesting. I will do a quick little roundup on what I've been reading lately. So if you were just here for the knitting, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed. A like and a subscribe would really be really appreciated. Let me know what you've been working on lately. If you've done any gift knits, if you're running out of time, like what's going on? Because I have to imagine it's crazy. I've been trying not to do any Christmas specific gift knits this year because it was just too much going on. But let me know, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. For books, what I've been reading, I have 2 that I finished recently that aren't in like series because those are kind of harder to talk about. The first is The House We Grew Up In by Lisa Jewell. She wrote None of This Is True, which is a really popular thriller that I read that was very interesting and I really liked it. This one is a little less thrillery. It's a little weirder. It's about like a family and the family dynamic, and the mom is like a hoarder and it causes lots of family problems. I don't know. I kind of liked it, kind of didn't. It's one of those books that like I don't know. If hoarding was something that like got me, that like bothered me, I wouldn't have been able to read it. But it doesn't really. It was just kind of interesting. I listened to it as an audiobook, which I think made it easier to ingest. Yeah, they've just got a weird family dynamic, and there's this whole thing about kind of what happened to their younger brother throughout the book, and that's sort of what exacerbated their mom's problems and all of this. And at the end, they figure it all out and they're okay, more or less. But yeah, it was kind of a weird book. It was okay. I'd give it like a 3.75 stars. Maybe not quite a 4-star, but it was still good. Like, it wasn't not worthwhile. If you just need a book to read, it's all right. The other one was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. And this is just like a cute, basically like Hallmark contemporary romance type book. I think it's very popular on TikTok. I just saw it and I needed something simple to read after some really big books that I finished. And it was cute. I liked it. It wasn't too crazy. It's about like a girl that moves out of the city and like is running a cafe that her aunt left to her, and like getting to know the town, and like it's so cute and quirky, and meets this guy who has lived there forever, and their whole story. It was pretty good. um I like, it was a good filler book. Again, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. If you like a light little book, I enjoyed it, I guess. It's one of those things where some books are like, I'm not saying you shouldn't read it. I'm just saying it wasn't like mind blowing. I guess I've read enough books this year that there's like a big difference between books you just read to read a book and books that you read and it like changes your life. This was not a life changing book, but neither of them were. But they were good. They were good books to read. They're interesting. I enjoyed them. And I recommend them both if you like that type of book. But thank you so much for my listening to me blab a little bit about books as well. I'm hoping to maybe insert a small section of this in my end of the year everything I knit video as well, maybe at the end, because I have I read a lot of books this year, also knit a lot of things. So kind of the two go hand in hand. I spend so much time reading while I'm knitting that, they're sort of intertwined, hard to pull apart. Uh, but I hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you're reading while you're knitting, if you're able to do that. If not, let me know what you're watching while you're knitting, because I also love a good TV show. I hope you have a great week, and happy knitting.